Dr. Allinson, we've got the budget for this year, which actually it's not as bad as we thought it was going to be, for want of a more polite word. We seem to have money.
Yes, I mean, what we've been trying to do in this budget is put money back into the pockets of working people, particularly families. Last year's budget was difficult for many people. We put up income tax. That was mainly to fund the overspend in health and social care, which has continued. But we made the commitment there to look at a number of things. One was reducing income tax down again, and we're doing it in a stepwise approach to go down from 22% down to 21%. We also pledged to look at personal allowances, which haven't been changed for many years. So the personal allowance would be going up by £250 for an individual, £500 for a couple. I would like to do more of that, but we're trying to make sure that we can balance the expenditure on health, social care and education with the amount of money coming in. Also looking at national insurance thresholds, rising those, particularly helping the low paid, and also looking at child benefit thresholds, which again haven't been changed for over a decade, and making sure that we can actually incentivise money going to the pockets of working families.
So the real headline figure in this for people which they'll immediately spot will be the drop in income tax from 22 to 21%. Last year the increase was ring-fenced for health and social care. Is that the same this year? Are we still working to that parameter? Or?
It is. I mean, the reason we're needing to get extra revenue is directly because of the extra investment we're putting into health and social care and education in particular. Education are getting an extra £8.3 million, including £3 million that's ring-fenced for the childcare strategy, trying to make childcare more accessible and affordable for working families. Also, we're making available to Manx an extra £25 million to deal with their increased demands and the way they want to increase efficiency, safety in the provision of services to people, both inside Nobles and outside in the community. So it is really quite important that we put that investment into public services at the same time as we try to lessen the burden on the general public.
Last year, this increase was given to the HSC/Manx Care, and this is the year that they stay on budget.
Yeah.
That never happened, as the Chief Minister basically revealed. I don't want to use the word lie, but essentially they weren't honest with what their figures were up until this report comes out, which said they were never going to hit that target. Can you be confident that their figures this year, they are going to stick to this?
We've been being really quite tough with the Manx Care Board and the Manx Care executives in terms of regular reviews of their spending, holding them to account for the spending where it has gone up significantly, understanding it and working with them to reduce those overspends. But that's not just Manx Care, we've been doing that right across the government sector. One of the things from last year when putting up the income tax is most people understood it, but they said you need to start in your own home. You need to look at government spending and make this far more realistic. We are looking in this budget, even with slight increases in the amount going into departments, still £25 million efficiency savings that need to be made to actually bring us back on budget. One of the other things we've been doing this year is having monthly scrutiny panels with all the departments so that we can detect when they're going off-piste, when they're starting to go over budget, and making sure they've got a back to balance programme to bring them back into budget in real time, rather than just bake that into the end of the year and say, oh sorry, we need a supplementary bid. So that fiscal discipline, trying to get people to do what they said they were going to do at the budget that was allocated by Tynwald, is absolutely key, and we're trying to really enforce that now in a way that in the past we haven't done to the same extent.
Just turning to national insurances, one of the things you have also announced is that the national insurance holiday for newcomers to the island is going, but you're retaining it for students who have come back from university.
Yes. I mean, the National Insurance Scheme was set up in 2019. The National Insurance Holiday Scheme in 2019, trying to encourage more people to move over to the island to grow the active working population. And what it does is mean that people can offset their national insurance if they stay here for 12 months or more. When we've done the analysis of that, it has been successful in terms of recruiting people, but it's come at a cost. And there's been many politicians in Tynwald who have questioned the viability of this. We accept that, we've run it as a trial. What it has helped, though, I think, is a lot of Manx students who want to relocate back here to get employment and offset some of the costs of doing that. So we're going to continue it on for Manx students who are coming back to the island, that they get that benefit of a national insurance rebate of up to £4,000.
Again, sticking with national insurance and indeed health as a whole, really, you've committed to the consultation on the healthcare levy and the consultation on national insurance pension changes.
Yeah.
Are you confident you can get that through in the next year? Because to quote the automatic, which is something I never thought I'd be doing, just look what's coming over the hill. It's
Yep.
election just 15, 16 months away.
Yeah, I
MHK
mean,
is going to get nervous.
Yeah, there are difficult decisions that need to be made. I don't shy away from that. We had the exceptional circumstance recently where we had a budget, a debate about the budget before the budget in terms of the proposed changes to the way that pensions were operated. I accept the decision of the House of Keys, the elected members there who responded to some of their electorate and their views, but we still need to deal with some of the structural issues with the Isle of Man economy in terms of an ageing population, people working at the moment paying international insurance contributions that are then being directly used to fund the pensioners we've got. We need to preserve that fund. So looking at some of the models that we've got for sustaining it, I think they are reasonable, but we need to do a bit more work on that. Again, with the healthcare levy, that's going to be interesting to see what the public's reaction to that is. A lot of people said that they'd be willing to pay more tax if they could see it going into healthcare. What they haven't necessarily experienced is the benefits of that extra money, and that's the delivery of Manx Care now. People need to see where their money's going to, and they need to see improved services, lower waiting times, and actually see the benefit of that extra expenditure. And that's what the Minister, the Honourable Claire Christian, will be announcing in Tynwald, is where that extra money is going and the priorities for the mandate going forward for the next financial year.
But just, are you confident you can? These are two massive consultations that are going to be held, the results of which will be not only very interesting reading, but also in terms of legislation that will come forward from that. Yep. You also got basically a year to do it. Yep. Treasury got a bit of criticism over how it hasn't progressed the health levy as it thought it was going to over the last year. Are you confident you can get these through over the next year? I
can certainly work on them. Whether that gets through this year and before the election is very much up to Tynwald. They have to pass any changes that I come up with, any proposals that we develop. What we certainly can do, though, is lay the groundwork, get that understanding of how our national insurance scheme works, that understanding about the future funding for health and social care, and make sure that people are aware of the issues there and aware of some of the difficult decisions that need to be made in the future if we're going to sustain that provision of the service and still be able to afford it.
Just final thing on spending, really. The capital budget, it's always an interesting one to see what comes up in it. Is there any money for horse trams to go back to the sea terminal?
I'm working with the Minister for the Department for Infrastructure to look at her priorities. Obviously, the horse trams has been much talked about. Is it still a priority for her department? And if it is, how can they afford that, either within their budget or actually bring that forward as a capital bid to Tynwald and let Tynwald decide whether it's a national priority? I'll be working with her to see what we want to do over the next year in terms of the capital scheme, because a lot of that is actually concentrated on the provision of new schools and particularly new affordable housing.
Well, yes, just on that was sort of the more serious point actually around capital is Castle Rushen High School. It is years since it was said it was basically it's not fit for purpose anymore. We just haven't. I remember Graham Cragine announcing just before the last election that there'd be time to get in the ground next year. That's never progressed. You're committing funding to the design side of that and hopefully get this going. How soon are you hoping to be able to sort of get that money in and get it going?
We've had regular meetings with the project development team, including the local politicians as well, and we've got one actually the day before the budget debate. What we'll be doing is going out for tender on that scheme and going into planning once we get the full designs, and I'm optimistic we can get that moving over the next 12 months in terms of spades in the ground. The money is there in the capital programme for it. It is a priority both for me as Treasury Minister, but also for the Department for Education, Sport and Culture, because it is an investment in the education of the future generations, and I think it should be an absolute priority, as is investment in the health and social care service.
Just finally, a quick look at some of the other headline announcements in this. The no increase to employer national insurance contributions, was there ever an intention to that, or was this more just sort of stating something after what happened with the Chancellor's budget in the UK?
Part of it is making sure that local businesses have that certainty about the direction of government. We've seen in other jurisdictions increasing taxes, various pressures on the business community. I want to make absolutely certain that the business community on the Isle of Man, who employ so many people and provide the services we need, have that confidence in the government that we're not going to heap on extra charges on them to be able to afford various other things like pensions and like benefits. So it's giving that certainty. But certainly in terms of the reviewing the national insurance scheme, I have no plans to increase employer national insurance to make it more sustainable. I think we need to get that balance right between what's coming in and what's going out.
There has been an increase to the thresholds for workers, but also the thresholds for child benefit. This is, I know the government's keen to frame this as put more money in people's pockets. Are you confident these changes will do that?
I think they will. When we've looked at the projections, every little bit helps. And the thresholds for being able to claim child benefit haven't changed in over a decade. So as people's wages have gone up over that decade, they've actually been getting less and less support from government in terms of supporting their families. We want to correct that, and we did that last year in terms of increasing child benefit and increasing it for second and subsequent children. Now we're increasing the thresholds as well, so that more and more parents and more families can benefit from the support that the government give them.
Just finally, 5-year forecasts. I think I've sat in this room for pretty much every budget of the last 5 years and heard that over the next 5 years we're going to reduce this and we're going to get closer and closer to a balanced budget. You're setting out the same sort of aim again this time.
Yep.
Are you confident that the figures that we'll have on the screen now can be matched over next year?
Yeah, part of my job is, one, to balance the budget for this year, but to plan ahead. And we have these 5-year financial plans. They are always a plan. There are always curveballs that the world can throw at you, and we've seen that over the last couple of years. I am confident with the way we can encourage consumer confidence, business confidence on our island, we can grow our economy, that we can achieve a much more balanced budget, we can grow our reserves at the same time as reducing the amount we take down from reserve interest to afford key public services. We're not cutting public services, but what we're trying to do is invest in productivity and efficiency so those are affordable for the Manx public.